Notice, there may be some small spoilers in this review. Watch at your own risk. Hi Snowflakes! Today I had the pleasure of watching Encanto in the theater. And while this is not Frozen related, Jennifer Lee did produce it, so that gives me an excuse to talk about it. The animation was 10 out of 10 as always, and it is always interesting to see how Disney has developed their animating curly hair technology since Merida. Like Mirabel's hair looked so realistic, it was perfect. The music was decent, and the combination of harmonies and rhythm reminded me of Hamilton, and I could definitely tell that it was written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. However, some of the music really gave off American rap vibes, making it feel like it was losing some of its Colombian heritage and roots. I think it would have been more authentic if they had a Colombian musician collaborate with Lin. There's also no wow song that resonated with me after I left the theater, however, it could be different for you. The opening song was a choppy addition, kind of like Lost in the Woods from Frozen 2, and was simply there to explain the Madrigal family and why they had powers. In all fairness, if I was a writer, I probably couldn't have found a better way to incorporate that info. But I'm not a professional writer, and actual writers should know how to make their plots smooth. The song also featured these super annoying little kids that seemed not to know anything about the town they lived in, if it had to be explained to them, and Mirabel also had an I Want song, which was beautiful, but not particularly memorable. Also, though, We Don't Talk About Bruno song had some beautiful harmonies, but its lyrics repeated the irrelevant information about the rainy wedding at the end, when I think the lyrics could have been changed up a bit to be less repetitive. In general, the music was good, but it wasn't anything extraordinary we haven't seen before. The storyline was also a bit iffy. The plot centered around why Mirabel didn't get magical powers like the rest of her family. But by the end of the movie, I didn't really have an answer to that question. Also, there's lots of talk about miracles, which have no explanation as to why, which is fine, but it makes the film feel less relatable and real. As well, we are given the impression that a family member named Bruno is this dark, mysterious, forbidden black magician that caused serious harm to the family. During the song We Don't Talk About Bruno, there is smiling. And from what I understood, Bruno did nothing more serious than predict rain at a wedding. Then we actually get to meet Bruno, and I am yet reminded that this movie is intended for little kids. I thought Bruno as a character had so much villainous potential, and I was actually getting kind of excited about meeting him. But actually, he's not intimidating in the slightest, and acts like a bumbling homeless person, and it doesn't help his case considering his only social life is with rats. So, I don't see any actual logical reason why Bruno was so hated, shunned, and forced to run away other than he saw this prophecy thingy that could make his family look weak and he predicted rain at a wedding, when Mirabel herself is practically a walking representation of the family's weakness. Also, apparently this hug thing between Mirabel and the sister that she hated is supposed to heal the house's magic, and we don't even really know why the magic fades exactly at that moment in the first place. And that just seems like a patchwork attempt at making this more of a feel-good movie. A big problem I have with the plot, which is also a big reason I didn't like Frozen 2 as much as I should have, is that there is no villain. It's more of Mirabel's battle with accepting herself, which is fine, but by itself as a conflict, it's boring and typically leads to plot holes. I would have suggested they do something similar to Frozen, where like Hans is the villain, but Elsa is also battling herself at the same time, and the main conflict is shared. There are also a lot of other plot holes and messy attempts at heartwarmingness that I won't bore you with, which is why the writers and directors of this film aren't my favorite, because the film is so sloppily put together and presented. But On the positive side, I really like the presence of color and symbolism in this film. I like the message that everyone has a place, even if they have different abilities. It's really a great message for today's day and age. And the casting is pretty on point, especially for that little kid that understands animals. He was so cute. And I liked how they used actual Colombian actors. It added to the authenticity of it. Every set is very cultured, and you can tell a lot of research was put into the film's making. I liked how Disney was not afraid to include churches, especially since Christianity is probably the faith of most Colombians at that time period. So that's good, because I feel like a lot of people are considering being anti-Christian in Western society and saying that, like, we can't put up Christmas trees because that's offensive and stuff. So I liked how Disney wasn't afraid to do that, and that was a big thing for me. I also liked the presence of magic throughout the whole film, as unrealistic as it was. I think you should definitely watch Encanto. It was a great film, but don't expect too much out of it. It's not like Frozen reincarnated as Colombian or anything like that. I would rate it a 7.5 out of 10 plot-wise if I'm being nice, and a 10 out of 10 for the visual elements, like the art, the animation, beautiful. I'd also like to add that this movie doesn't really appeal to anyone. It's too dry, cheerful, and cheesy to appeal to adults or older kids like me, and too confusing and boring for its target audience, which is the younger kids. My sisters found it boring, but were still excited to get out of the house for the trip. So go watch Encanto and let me know in the comments what you thought of it. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.